Okay, welcome to Trading Triumphs, the journey to success with Jerry Parker. This is the third part in my three-part series discussion with Jerry. And now in this part, we're going to be talking about over-optimization. And Jerry's going to share a story of how he used optimization and the unexpected impacts it had on his trading results. We're going to talk about over-optimization, how we can avoid it, and some solutions for traders, plus a whole bunch of other stuff as well. Jerry doesn't hold back in this one, so let's get to it. So now the third one I'd like to talk about, which you did mention a little bit already, you were talking about filtering. Now something that I think catches a lot of traders out is optimization, or actually over-optimization. So can you tell us about some experiences you've had with optimization and perhaps over-optimizing?
Right. Yeah, I have some sad stories. This is the sad part of the podcast.
Oh, no. If I had a violin, I'd play, but I don't know how to play either. But
well, even so far, I've told some sad stories. People are wondering, does this guy ever make any money? How's he been around for almost 40 years? So, yeah. But when we first started trading, the first 4 years with Rich were successful, and then the next, with Chesapeake, 8 to 10 years, we made money like every year. And that's one of the things about long-term trend following, is that it has lots of negative characteristics that we've already talked about, but it's very reliable on an annual basis, or just 2-year basis. It has a tendency to really, it'll make money, but it may not be a lot of money, but it really, you have to sit with a lot of drawdowns and a lot of whipsaws. But the one thing it does give you is it's very reliable. And so we were just using these simple approaches and having so much success, but it kind of like went to our head a bit, in the sense that, well, let's do better. And, making money every year, that's pretty darn good. And our clients loved it. Clients were very greedy, and they were throwing money at us because we were so consistent. But we couldn't help ourselves, and we tried to do research, and it was just basically trying to improve things. We were listening to what other traders were doing, profit objectives, take profit, reduce your positions based upon volatility. And then when we put those in place, we looked at the back test though, and we said, this back test is pretty amazing. We're going to even be better than we've been. But then after about 3 or 4 months, we saw performance that we had never seen on the back test. It was so bad. So we immediately abandoned that. That was another good thing too, that it doesn't always happen with traders. I've seen traders get into the same situation and be so committed to back testing and research, they're almost obsessed with it, that if they turn their back on their latest research, or the whole process of doing research, then they really can't handle it. And we were basically came to the opposite conclusion. We were saying, we just went too far. We can add more markets, we can become more diversified. Maybe we should be longer term. There's other things we can do in our research process that doesn't violate the 10 commandments of trend following, all the great rules and philosophy I was taught. And so I think that was a good move on my part to sort of realize this incredible mistake that I had made, because I literally was looking at just months worth of data that we had lost money 4 months in a row, and our relative performance was pretty bad. And we had never seen something like that in the back test. So that's a very good sign. You look at this back test, and right out of the gate, the performance is so bad, and it doesn't look anything like this wonderful back test. Go back to the drawing board and be willing to swallow your pride, because it's all about making money and doing what it takes to make money. And it's not about scratching your itch to make you think that how great you are as a back tester, or how smart you are. I like to think that I'm smart, but I would prefer to trade a methodology that's a little less involved and less complex if it's going to increase my ability to make profits.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on optimization now? Do you use it at all or not?
I don't use. Yeah, what I try to do with my strategy is I want to, like I said, trade as many markets as possible: stocks, commodities, currencies, interest rates, crypto futures, and then have these trend following systems that are multiple systems, like maybe 4 or 5 different entries, 4 or 5 different exits. So I think this adds diversification as well. So literally what we would do is just focus on how short-term can we trade. We don't want to be too short-term, but what's a good short-term parameter? So we would test that out. Once again, just one entry, one exit, and a stop loss. And then we would say, okay, how long-term can we trade? And then we would get a pretty good indication of how that worked. And then we would literally just say, okay, just trade a couple systems in between without really even caring about optimizing the parameters so much. Another way that we get away from optimization is we don't pay very much attention to the equity curve and the equity stats, the drawdowns and the volatility, and trying to smooth out that equity curve. Whenever you try to smooth things out and increase your Sharpe, that's where it all begins. That's where the over-optimization begins. All we paid attention to really was the trade stats, the average win, the average loss, the average trade, the win percentage. There's a hell of a lot of stuff that happens in between the entry and the exit, right? We just ignored it. We were like, we don't care what happens in between. We just want to find systems with healthy trade stats and that make the most amount of money per small loss. So the win-loss ratio. Here's what the average win is. Here's what the average loss is. Let's try to maximize that and close our eyes and live with drawdowns, live with volatility, but trade leverage-wise in a way that makes that possible, of course. But I think, and I've often said over the years, I try to take as little from the back test as possible. Here's a good place to buy. Here's a pretty good place to sell. We're done. And one of the things that when you get into this trend following, the way we do it, when you get it, you'll see that there is this group of parameters, the shortest to the longest, where all the systems make about the same amount of money. And to me, that's very comforting. So, yeah, I'm trying to give you lots of examples in verbiage, but really, I try not to use research very much or back testing very much. And these are the reasons why. It's totally unnecessary. We want our systems to and then we don't want to stay too long and give back too much profit. That's kind of our job. Stay within those parameters, make it as robust as possible with as few rules and parameters as possible.
Yeah. So I like that approach of having multiple systems within the strategy, I guess, that look over different time horizons, like you mentioned, shorter term and longer term, and then some in the middle. What about for people who maybe don't have the capital requirements to be able to do that, and they've got to just go, I can just do one system here? How do you think they should approach it?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit tougher. I think hopefully you can do at least 2 systems, a shorter term and a longer term. But yeah, you have to maybe, that could be a little difficult if capital requirements, for sure. But a good trend following system with just one system, if that's all that you can do at the time, it'll help you over time get to a place where you can do more. You'll make money as long as you have a good medium to long-term strategy that doesn't try to get in and get out too quickly. I used to say we take small losses. Now I think it's an optimal loss. I think all of these entries and exits and parameters are kind of optimal. There's nothing magical, there's nothing special. Really what makes them special, what makes them work is always doing them. That's the secret, is always following your system, whether it's one system, and maybe later it'll be 2 or 3 or 4, but don't do whatever you can to put yourself in a situation where you can do all of the trades in the right way, in the system's way. And if you have to make this cutback, the great thing about the cutback too, if you have to trade small for a while, is it allows you to keep doing the trades. Whereas if you sort of like say, well, I'm really on the defensive here, I need to trade smaller, I'm going to have to choose some trades not to do. That's what you don't want to do. You want to do all the trades in the way you're supposed to do them. And this cutback rule says, oh, all we did was just reduce our leverage, reduce our current positions and our future positions for a while. But we can go right back to doing all the trades we're supposed to do. This is magic. This is a superpower, being consistent. Our systems are very similar and they're very correlated. And from a traditional way of measuring correlation, people might ask, why do you even bother? They're all long. You know, you're long orange juice or cocoa, and you've been long for a year or two. And they've all been long for a year or two. And I'm like, yeah, that's wonderful, because they're all making lots of money. And so the correlation measurement is kind of a trick, because it doesn't really matter so much that in these trends, where it really matters, your exits are really going to have a big impact. Correlation is the wrong measurement. When you finally get out of the sugar and the cocoa and the yen and some of these, and Eli Lilly, these exits that you have on your systems will more than likely produce vastly different P&Ls. Some will get out near the high, some will give back more profit. Some might get out too quickly, and then the market will go back to the highs and keep going, and the longer term systems will do better. So it's really for a trend follower looking at the value of diversifying the exits in terms of the profit in the trade. You sort of you don't know where the perfect place to get out until after the trade is done. And then when you look at all the data, 40, 50 years worth of back testing, all the markets, the conclusion that the computer shows you is all these systems make about the same amount of money. Of course they do, because you can't predict. And they'll make the same amount of money if you did all the trades that you're supposed to, in the way you're supposed to.
Yeah, that's an interesting insight, Jerry. I think a lot of traders, when they look at correlation, they're really concerned with the entries, and they're not going to get in a trade because they're already in another trade. And just from what you're saying there, that the exits are really the ones that give you a lot of diversification. Have you ever compared entries and exits to see which ones actually do provide better diversification?
Yeah, for sure. I think the more you can spread them out, the better. Yeah. So you've got to spread them out a bit so that it makes more of a difference. Yeah, but sometimes my entries are all the same on a certain trade. All my systems get in on the same day, and it's definitely possible they can get out on the same day. They kind of, these breakout rules. This is kind of a function of using breakouts. But once again, that brings up another idea of how important it is to be diversified. So and trade as many markets as possible. If you're getting in all at the same place in the crude, maybe the entries in the heating oil will be a bit different and more spread out. It's very important too to not try to manipulate the systems and the entries and the exits to try to achieve something else, like this diversification or spreading your risk out. It just leads you to trying to not really follow the system as much as you should. So I think I have done that as well. I want to space it out. So I'll force these systems to space out in some sort of way that makes me feel better, because I don't like it when they all get in on the same day. You're screwing up with the power of always doing the same thing every time, which is primo. That's the most important thing. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right. Well, so how do we summarize all that, Jerry? We were just talking about optimization, and you shared so many different insights there. So, how do we summarize? How do we summarize that? Don't do it.
I would say that we're fine with minimizing the optimization,
right?
Because the benefit of not optimizing is more robustness and more reliability with our rules. And the most important thing about, if you have too many rules, multiple parameters, let's all stick with one entry, one exit, and a stop loss, but multiple systems. So the 50-day breakout, the 75-day breakout, the 100-day breakout, and then we'll have an exit in the same, to get out with a breakout. But we don't want to add in more and more filters, more and more conditions, loose pants, let the markets go, have multiple systems. That's rather than overloading your one system with all these different rules, have multiple systems with very few rules. That's how you stay on the right side of the robustness gods. They will punish you if you put too many rules in there.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. All right. Well, just as we finish up here, Jerry, you mentioned that we've been talking all about sad stories up to now. Do you have a happy story you'd like to share, or maybe some closing comments to finish up for today?
Right. I think one of my big lessons of trading all these years in my style has been you're really leaving your fate in the hands of the markets. I almost think I don't want to interfere. Don't get in the way. I promise you, there's been lean times, and you just have to realize that the markets will eventually bail you out and have these big trends. And it is so much fun. It's like fighting a big fish and landing that big fish. And they will, when you have the opportunities, your job is to do the right thing with the opportunities. It's not you cannot produce these big trends. The one thing that you need to be successful is totally out of your control. The only control you have is, did I do what I should have done with my possibly mediocre system? But I'll take a mediocre trader, a mediocre systematic approach that's not over-optimized, and a person who's dedicated and willing to do all the trades and hang on to those trends and not be eager to get out too quickly over a more sophisticated approach that can break much more easily. So I am so thankful for these markets that we have and how they have bought all the houses that I own and all my boats and all my standard of living just because I hung on to those long-term trends. Whenever I talk to traders, that's the one thing that they all tell me is, I got out too quickly. I think you want to be that person who tried to stay as long as you can. And you only have to stay as long as your system tells you to. You can. It's not like you have to do something that's not correct. We only do it because the computer tells us to do it.
Yeah. Well, what a way to end our discussion, Jerry. Thank you very much for that. Actually, before we go, I have to ask you, what's that picture behind you there? What's the story?
That is a Christmas gift from my son. One of
Wow.
my sons gave me that. It's my picture instead of Leonardo DiCaprio's.
Yeah.
So
To play the Turtle of Wall Street, right? Yeah.
yeah.
That's
So
great.
yeah, that's pretty funny, right?
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, Jerry. Well, thank you very much for our discussion today. For anyone who wants to learn more from you or get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's been fun. It went by really quickly. Thanks for giving me this opportunity and asking me all these good questions. You really brought out my juices were flowing, my memories were flowing. But yeah, chesapeakecapital.com and Twitter, RJ Parker JR09, Twitter, and I'm on Twitter Spaces. We do a trend following Spaces every Friday, 7 a.m. New York time, and we have some Aussies on there. So I know it's late,
Yes,
9 or 10 o'clock at night, but I did one of those spaces from Australia, actually, late at night. So it can be done. And we have some good friends on there. So that's a good place to learn about trading and to have some camaraderie about trading. November was a tough month. So it's good to have people who are going through the same thing sometimes.
Yeah. And you post recordings of those on your Twitter account as well, because I listened to one a few weeks back and it was great. So thank you for sharing that. Even though I didn't make the call, it was really nice to listen back to. So I'll have links to all that underneath the video here for anyone who didn't catch it just then, and go and check that out. So, and also if you enjoyed my chat with Jerry and everything that Jerry shared with us today, please give us a thumbs up on the video, and don't forget to hit subscribe and the bell button to be notified of any new content. All right, Jerry. Well, thank you again for today. It's been an honor speaking with you, and it did go by so fast. It was really enjoyable. Any closing comments?
No comments.
Oh, okay.
We exhausted all I have. But thank you for having me again. It was wonderful. I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much,
I hope
Jerry.
to see you soon.
Yeah, likewise. Take care.
Take care.